we don't generally call them websites, right? We call them digital homes. And it's literally that. When you see that, oh, this website suddenly taken the client 100x from where they were, before. Initially, you used to be like, I don't want to talk to clients, kind of, that way. But then now you're like, dude, you don't need to come for the meeting. I got this.
You're literally going to miss out on a lot of these core information.
So it's really rewarding when you just see the graph go like up, right? I think you shared a Twitter thread recently. Was it today? That where everything starts looking purple and that it's a SaaS website. It's a SaaS website as soon as you see the colors. Hi everyone, welcome to the It's Rendering podcast, and thank you for joining us for the last couple of episodes as well. And we're just going to continue our conversations and talk about how we craft thoughtful experiences. That's our entire goal of this podcast, and not just crafting thoughtful experiences, but how we craft thoughtful experiences as a team. I think that's very important. And on that note, let me introduce you to, or rather welcome Jeet to the podcast. Jeet's a dear teammate of mine. And yeah, I don't know if you want to say hi, Jeet, but whatever's up. Yeah. So I don't quite remember how we started working. I mean, I know how we started working together. I don't quite remember. I think it was a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 2 years plus, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, it was a mutual friend who introduced Jeet to me, or rather, initially said that, there's this guy who wants to kind of learn UI UX or is into UI UX. And at that time, I was still working individually. Wasn't really working as a team or anything. And I just come to Siliguri, not really thinking we'd be in Siliguri. But, well, here we are recording this from Siliguri. So that's been an interesting journey, because if I remember correctly, the first thing that you introduced me to was a Spotify redesign. I don't know if you remember it.
No, yeah, I do. I mean, it was like one of my earlier designs. But yeah, I mean, to be honest about it, I wasn't really looking at the experience as such back then. I mean, I had just started, so it was a lot to do with the visuals. But then, yeah, I mean, in these 2 years, I've literally learned so much on the job.
Yeah, but I mean, visuals are part of the experience, right? You can't have an experience. I mean, the whole point of us being here is the fact that we have video recording, and I've been trying to figure out how not to get my camera to turn off for the last, I don't know how many 10 minutes has been part of the experience. But that's the thing. I think you mentioned that you kind of learned on the job, right? And yeah. I think, I don't know, for me, that's the best way to learn. I don't quite believe in just, learning all the theoretical side of things. I'd rather, just focus on learning by doing. And I think that I probably pushed you a little too hard initially, right? And then, or I'll probably still do. But I don't know. Oh, wait, hang on. Before I get carried away, rather, would you like to tell people what you do?
Oh, yeah. So, hey guys, my name is Jeet, as Daniel had already introduced. I handle all the UI UX. Yeah, this is our merch, by the way, at NEM. So, yeah, I handle all the UI UX things for NEM, and I handle a couple of client side things as well. But yeah, it's mostly in the website department. So, yeah, sorry, Daniel, continue.
No, I know. You just said I handle. That's understating it. I don't think you just handle the client side of things. I think you handle it very well, because you've also picked up and you've kind of put yourself out there. You've kind of pushed yourself to grow as well, right? It's not just it's not just I used to design without thinking about experiences. I used to only be focused on the visual side of things. Even as a professional, even as a person, you've kind of pushed yourself to go out there, try new things. And I know initially you used to be like, I don't want to talk to clients, kind of, that way. But then now you're like, dude, you don't need to come for the meeting. I got this, So that's been an interesting change as well. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, because I personally, my take has always been that you cannot grow as a professional. You cannot be a professional unless it's holistic development, right? I can't say that, I'm a UI UX or I'm interested in design, and I'm only going to sit in front of a computer and create boxes and stuff like that. Sorry, no offense to any of the designers. I'm a designer myself, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. For sure, man, for sure. I mean, you can't just be looking at a single thing, especially in today's day and age. I mean, I think we were discussing about the T-shape growth, right? A couple of weeks back. Maybe we'll talk about it in the podcast as well in maybe some coming episode. But yeah, so in today's
age, special. We'll have a Jeet special lessons for life.
Maybe. Who knows? Kidding. But yeah, in today's age, I think you can't just be solely looking at one particular thing. You should have a mentality of course, like being an expert in one thing, but then learning a couple of side skills as well, which are related to that core subject. So yeah, it's been like a really big learning journey for me. I mean, I didn't really want to talk to clients, but then I had to. And I think, especially in my initial days, you used to push me a lot, like with the question of why, as in like, why did you make this design choice? Or why is this done this way? And the why is mattered a lot. So
I think I'm infamous there. You're not the only one who's told me that. I think like even Varun for he used to tell me that you used to ask too many questions. I used to be scared of your questions, right? Because I'm always like, okay, why is this element here? Like, why is this? Why have you chosen this color? Why have you chosen this texture? All of that. And I think like as you grow as a designer as well, you don't initially think about all of these things, right? It's like, oh, like I liked it. It looks good, but then that's not good enough. Especially once you start getting into like doing work for others. For you, like fair enough, like couldn't care less. But then once you get into the commercial space doing work for others, you have to get into understanding and being able to justify what you're doing as well. And that's the point of design, right? Design has to be intentional. Otherwise, it's just like whatever. You might as well just use a template and then get it out there, right? I mean, there's a place for templates as well. Actually, that's a good point. We could talk about that. Like, what's your thought on like figuring out templates? And I know we've recently had this discussion. We're like, oh, there are some smaller things which we don't need to focus on as much. Maybe we could just make do with certain components and things. So if you don't know what components are, maybe we'll have a tutorial on that someday. But that's something I think, like finding that balance and also not just going with templates, but also learning the basics. I think that was a learning journey as well, right? It's not just figuring out, this looks good, let me copy it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think templates have their own place, depending. I mean, a lot of things depend on it, like the time constraints and the flexibility of the client, and of course, I mean, the budget as well. But yeah, but I still feel that templates might work on some cases, especially with clients who have like a lower budget. But then, if the client does have a budget for something more bespoke or tailored, because at the end of the day, we want to give the client something that is specifically catered for them, their business, their users, their audience, right? So a template might not work for everybody. But then again, as I said, budget, timeline, all these things matter a lot. But I still feel ideally, especially in today's age where a lot of the websites are starting to look the same way, right? It's all like...
sorry, I think you shared a Twitter thread recently. Was it today that where everything starts looking purple and that's like it's a SaaS website. It's a SaaS website as soon as you see the color scheme.
Yeah. So yeah, for our audience, if any of you designers who are stumbling upon Twitter and watching all these design things, you probably know what we are talking about. It's a lot of these SaaS websites are almost starting to look the same way, even though they might have different elements. But then overall, if you're like blurring the screen or something, then they all start to look exactly the same.
Glass morphism, man, everywhere. Like you can't escape it today.
Yeah. Transparency, dude, every single bit. And I mean, as a trend, I really like it.
Say anything because we are going to do something similar for our own stuff, right?
Oh, that's a secret coming soon.
Nah, it will be out by the time this goes out. Hopefully, that's on me.
Yeah, probably. Let's hope it did. But yeah, as I think, as we were talking about, templates have their own place. But then in today's age, you would want your site to look more unique, right? You don't want it to look exactly how your competitor looks or people or other sites in your own industry. Your site like literally says so much about you. So yeah.
Yeah, and I like the way that we call it. We don't generally call them websites, right? We call them digital homes, and it's literally that. Like that's where the first thing that a lot of people do when they want to know what about a brand is search for where do you have a website, kind of, right? And that makes such a big difference. But even like templates, I know they have a place and things like that, but you can't even just to know what sort of a template to use. For example, you need to know basics, right? As a designer, you can't just be copying stuff, right? Like even for you, like I know we started off working with like, okay, let's break down websites. Let's look at stuff that we like. Let's look at references. And this is the case with all art form, right? Because you spoke about like the T-shaped skill set, and we want to focus on building a V-shaped skill set. If you don't know what these are, just ask us. Let us know in the comments. We can jump in and let you know over there. Future episode. We'll release a course very secretly, right? I'm kidding. But yeah, what's that been like for you? Because I know you've also had to deal with like not just design, but you also had to look at the development side of things, not develop it yourself, but also oversee it sometimes, like guide developers maybe. and then developers be like, yeah, why don't you just use a template? So even to pick a template, I think you need to know basics, right? You can't just randomly do it.
Yeah. I think we've also had like a couple of clients come up to us who are just like, why can't we use this particular template, or lower your budget? We can just use a template. But then templates don't always work. What I've seen is a lot of again, like smaller budget clients. What they do is they just buy a theme of WordPress or theme forest or something, and they just keep it at that. But then what they actually need to understand is not everything which is a part of that theme needs to be on the site. Every part of it has its own section, from the hero to the feature section to the ending. All of it are there for a specific purpose, and not all of them are necessarily needed for your main site.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the role of a designer comes in, because as designers or as UX designers, we need to study the importance and the meaning for and the need for each of these sections and what they mean. So I think that's where even like design agencies and again like agencies like us, NEM, that's where we come in, because we can actually help the clients understand. We might not work with those clients on the long term, but then we'll still be able to help them on deciding whether they should go for a theme, or like according to their budget. Like we help them, how do you call it,
Find direction and find meaning.
find
and-
direction. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's very important, right, for us, because even with like, sure, there's a theme available, but I don't know if you've noticed, every single person who's come to work with us has anyone who's, even those who've said like, okay, why don't we bought this theme, just kind of modify it, plug it in for us, kind of. We don't generally take those things up, but even when we do, like maybe maybe it's someone that we've been working with and we have to do this little thing for them.
Yeah.
They don't end up with the theme, right? Even the
Yeah.
theme is so heavily modified that it doesn't look like a theme anymore, because they kind of get it. And that's our role as well, right? As an agency, as people who have multiple heads together, we do need to also play that role of guiding them. And it's part of the education process as well, because I think a lot of small brands, and we come from a place which just 10 years ago would not even be called a city, and today I don't think you can
Yeah.
run away from that tag, right? But it's changed so much. Like I was just like we were talking to a client recently in person about his needs and all of that, and suddenly it was like, no, we don't want to do what everybody else is doing, we want to stand out. And so we have to get to that point where we're educating people as well. And I think even for us, we are working with a client right now who we're trying to educate. We're like, hang on, this is what you have in mind, but this is what actually your audience needs. I think that's part of the process, right? And you play a very key role in that, because it's not just okay, I've designed it and I've given it to you, figure it out, right?
Yeah.
I think you can walk us through that process as well a little bit. Like I think right from the beginning, just a brief overview, perhaps that might help people who are listening and understand exactly what it is that you do.
Yeah, sure. So okay, so let's say you have just sat with the client and you're done with the onboarding call. Then what a lot of people do is they directly go into design, and they start creating boxes and frames and things like that. But then I don't believe that's a correct approach, because every client has a certain need, and they're all different from each other. And a lot of times clients themselves do not know what exactly do they need. We need to sit with the clients and then get it out from them, essentially.
No,
Yeah.
and it takes time, right? It's not something that can happen like in, you just spend half an hour with a client and I've understood everything, and, or I give them a very short questionnaire to fill up. Because I've seen this with a lot of designers. They'll just send you like a Google form which has like 2 or 3 questions, like, okay, what colors do you want? What references, website you. How does that
Yeah, I've
help?
seen that,
Because
yeah.
it comes down to what you said about the need part of it, right? We are here to fulfill a need, and we're here to solve a problem. Like if I don't understand what the problem is, how am I going to provide a solution?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it, right? That's the whole point of whatever you were saying about research and all of these things. Right.
Yeah, true. A lot of the times clients come up to us and they already have this certain site that they have seen, and they are like, okay, I want something like this, and they are already expecting that it won't take much time because they already have this certain thing in mind. But then it's our job to actually educate them and let them know that maybe what has worked for their competitor or whichever side they're talking about, maybe what has worked for them might not work for our clients. So again, after the onboarding call, it's our job to do a lot of the back-end research learning their business models, their whole business, understanding their users and everything. And with the whole process, we actually sit with them and then talk to them, and then we show them our findings and let them know uh, what let them know each of the steps that we'll be taking, whether say it's user personas or creating sitemaps. uh, I'm sorry, I'm assuming that people probably know this. If not, I mean, you can obviously
Hey,
Google.
don't
But
don't
yeah,
don't disclose the entire process, you know.
oh yeah, yeah, but yeah, you get the point. Our listeners, I mean, that we sit with the client throughout the whole process, and then sometimes we have to let them know that maybe these are actually your needs, because sometimes clients come with us and they have this. They're thinking, okay, they'll have this shopping feature, they'll want the search feature, they'll want this whole database of accounts and everything. But a lot of the times, maybe they just need a landing page. Who knows? So we sit with them, and then we try to get it out of them what their final goal is with the site that they want to create. Maybe they just want to sell this one particular thing, or maybe they have a range of things like that. So yeah, it's it's a lot of giving directions and learning that happens with the client and you before even the first design comes up. So yeah, anyway, so once the whole research and everything part is over, and then we have sort of let the clients know what the future directions are going to be like, then finally we get to the design part of it. And yeah, what uh, what we like to do in NEM is basically give three homepage options or three landing page options, whichever the client has decided for, whether a landing or homepage. uh, what's the
Yeah,
difference
because
between that?
sorry,
Maybe
sorry
we'll
if
talk
I'm
about it later.
cutting in.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
sorry, yeah.
but you know what you said about what the client has decided, because at the end, like, you can't force something on the client, right? You
Oh yeah.
they, because we've seen that, right now we are consulting with a client who contacted us on Instagram. It's like, oh, we need a website, but then over the course of the conversation, like, no, you don't actually need a website, because you don't have anything to put on the website. You need to build that out first. Like, if you're building
Yeah.
a brand that is like, they actually produce content, but it's not content that is public, right? It's content for a very specific group of people. So then what's the point of creating a public website? So,
Mhm.
so but then if they were adamant about it and be like, no, no, we absolutely want a website, so then what? So then sometimes we might drop it also. We're like, no, hang on, this doesn't match what, our research shows, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we are the ones responsible. Like, if maybe we've created a website and no one's ever visiting the website, that's our responsibility, right?
Yeah, that's
That
on us then. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's high risk, but it's also very rewarding when you see that, oh, this website has suddenly taken the client, like, 100x from where they were, before. And we've actually seen that, like, it's really rewarding when you just see the graph go like up, right? And that's something that you were pointing out as well. Like, it's not, we don't force anything, and we are here to provide guidance, we're here to provide direction.
Mhm.
And we need to act as that objective party, right? We can't be biased, like, oh, you have to have a website, like, oh, you can't have a website. We can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, we are not here to just sell, right? So
Yeah, I mean, you've come to us for expertise, and our expertise isn't just like, okay, we are just going to give you a mock-up and then that's it. That's not the point of us being here, right?
we are not Wix.
Let's not go there. uh,
But yeah, I think you've rightly pointed out, and all of this will only happen if we understand and the client understand what their real needs are. Then only I think we could come to this, like, their catered result per se.
Yeah, I think that we've been quite fortunate, like blessed, I would say, like over the last a year or so, where we've actually started working as a team to have clients who understand our process. But there have also been times where clients are like, "No, what's this process?" Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know this, right? We've discussed this. Where someone's like, "Oh, you guys are too meticulous," and I was like, "Yeah, you might have met that negatively, but I'm really happy. That's a compliment for us, like, because." And then finally, you see the result of that, and it's like it didn't work. And then they come
Yeah.
back and be like, oh, do you have any advice? And you're like, yeah, you should have listened to what we had to say. Right? I know I'm being a little facetious with that, but it's kind of true as well. Like, you have to be not just an expert who understands, okay, this is what good design is, but good design at the end of the day is basics and getting it simple. Because, as they say, right, keep it simple, stupid, right? KISS, the acronym. So
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
same thing, right? Like, we tend to throw everything at it sometimes, but that's not the point. It's understanding the user, as you like you've been pointing out as well. Um,
Mhm.
and it's, I think for you also, it's not easy to let go of your own preconceived notions, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, this is what I think these guys need, but then as you do a research, you might find a time where you're like, no, actually this is not what they need, and this is, I need to let go of my bias. I don't know if you faced that
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
situation.
that is true. That is true. I mean, I still face it. It's a lot to do with our own design biases, right? Which is why I think user research is such a important piece. Like you can't just design anything which looks good. Of course, looks are a big part of it, but then you need to design something which is like more catered. If you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you can't
I
design
can't.
something, you can't just design something that, sorry, let me rephrase that. I think you can't design something that just looks good. You need to design something that works well, right? That's the key thing.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think what matters to the client most is if the product actually works, if the design is actually working. Because I've seen a lot. I mean, if you just go onto Dribble and then see, you'll see like hundreds and thousands of beautiful screens, right? Or whether it's a mobile screen or the website, you'll see a lot of them. But then, how many of them are actually being built? So yeah, and I think that's where a lot of agencies miss out on. I feel a lot of designers or even like freelancers, they design something which, yeah, definitely looks good, but then like 6 months later the client comes up with their own issues that this design is not working, people are not able to see this section, or it's not actually converting, right?
Mm.
And at the end of the day, what our job is to help our clients actually convert and not just design something which again looks pretty.
Yeah. No, like you mentioned as well just now about the fact that it's not converting. I think one very important aspect of the process that I think we kind of skipped over is user flows, right? If you don't
Oh yeah,
understand the user flow and you don't keep that in mind, what's the point, right?
you're literally gonna miss out on a lot of these core informations.
True. Like even the landing page that you've just designed for one of our clients, just, I mean, we just built it out this week.
Yeah,
There's a certain user flow that was required. Like, okay, what information goes where, right? So how do you figure that out? Because the client might not understand these things, and sometimes they might want something up there. So how do you go about explaining that to them?
it could be a bit difficult for certain clients than others, because I've seen like some of the clients are really ready to educate themselves, or they're ready to accept if we can actually show them or make them understand. But then of course we'll again find some clients who are like very either old school, or they are pretty stubborn in their own biases, right, own beliefs on what they think this works or this doesn't. But then at least our job is to educate them of, again, I as a designer have to learn on what the principles and techniques that go into a landing page, or essentially designs on or how the flow should be, let's say, of a landing page. And it could be a bit difficult to make the clients understand the whole process. But then, if they do trust us and they do trust the process, yeah, result I think speaks for themselves.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, man. Trust the process. It's not just for us to trust the process, because very often you see designers telling designers, you're like, dude, trust the process. But no, it's also for the clients and it's also for everyone else. Like even for us, like internally as well, trust the process. Sometimes we forget that most important bit. And I think just getting through today's episode has been quite a process. But
Yeah,
yeah, thanks to everyone who's actually listened in. I mean, I hope you've gotten a couple of things, because we had like what was it, 6 or 7 talking points. We've barely
yeah,
gotten through 2 of
six.
them. So yeah, stay tuned for whatever comes next. We have a lot coming up. Even something as simple as what makes a good brief, for example. Or how do you request? We can even talk about how to request a good brief at that time. Jeet's expertise. So I
Yeah,
think we can kind of talk about that. So yeah. Thanks, Jit, and thanks for all of the insights. I really liked what you said about trusting the process, and also, being so user focused. I think that's so important, and it's something that I've been learning alongside as well. And yeah, just follow to everyone else who's watching, listening, whatever. The normal stuff of like, share, subscribe, whatever, and just let us know what other topics you'd like us to explore, because I think we had a lot of talking points, and we barely covered even half of them. So
yeah.
yeah, even something as simple as what makes a good brief, or how do you get a good brief from a client, or how do you even go about educating a client, for example. Why should you even care, first of all? That's the most important bit. I love my whys, so that's there. So yeah, I don't know what's your handle now for people to follow.
Oh, guys, it's called figma.jeep. Please follow me.
Yes,
I do
100-day
share a
challenge.
couple of yeah. Except that. Except that.
uh, yeah, inside joke. Sorry, but anyway, yeah. So like, share, subscribe if you think someone else might benefit from this for sure, and let us know in the comments or in the Q&As on Spotify and stuff what you'd like us to talk about next, and if there was something that you'd like us to elaborate on more, for sure. Follow us on Instagram at National Media, and yeah, let us know. We'll be here to help. We're here to be very as transparent as we can with everything, and yeah, and we're learning. Like, I mean, the whole team is also learning as we go, and we're open to sharing whatever we learn, along the way. So thank you for joining us. Thanks, Jeet. Really appreciate it, and thanks for putting up with all of the technical difficulties. As you can tell, there have been many. Thank you very much for that, and yeah, cheers.